Coming up on the Fish Hunt Forever podcast.
Their migration is just so interestingly timed, I guess.
Could we choose our 30 days in Minnesota?
Actually working on a revision of the Eastern Sandhill Crane Management Plan right now, which includes a revision to the harvest strategy.
We've had doves around, and then, we had those 40s overnight the other night.
Fairly confident that those birds are, went west or north of us.
This is the Fish Hunt Forever podcast, formerly Sporting Journal Radio, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. Alrighty. Here we go, getting right into it, Dan. Shorter intro for the new show.
I got to be quick on the trigger to switch scenes here and switch camera shots. That's for those that don't know, listeners that don't know, that's what I do here is switch the cameras around, and that's a little tricky. I gotta be quick on the trigger.
Little on air production.
Breaking the fourth wall. For those of you who are curious how our podcast is made.
Some BTS.
How many people have turned it off because they don't care? They wanted to listen about fishing.
So, I wasn't sure when I could start talking there.
Yeah, well, just wait till you see your face on the screen.
And that's when it'll start. Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
I think so. That works for me.
Welcome to the show.
Here we are.
Ladies and gentlemen, the new Fish Hunt Forever podcast, formerly Sporting Journal Radio. We're going to remind you of that fact probably for the next few weeks, I'm sure. Something like that.
Well, I wonder how many times we're going to screw it up.
Probably many, many. I've done radio for a long time, and I've been on a lot of format changes. So you're on one station, you're like, all right, we counted out tonight the top country hits or the latest rock songs or whatever I was doing at the time. Preferably the rock songs, but and then we changed formats, and it was inevitable. You'd be on the air and you'd say the wrong name of the radio station for.
I don't know if that was a sick brag that you've been a part of a bunch of reformats. Maybe that means you weren't doing your job.
Terrible at this. Terrible at it. But this show has been going for 13 years. We've changed the name one other time, kind of twice, I guess. Kind of, sort of. In any case.
One name, two names. This is the fourth name it's had.
It was Minnesota Sporting Journal.
Yep.
Then it was Northland Outdoors Radio. Yep. Then it was Sporting Journal Radio. And now it's Fish Hunt Forever.
Name number 4.
Yeah. So, all right. Well,
best one there's been, if you ask me.
This is the future moving forward. And I wrote all about why we made the name change. You can read all about it at fishhuntforever.com. Plus get latest regulation updates for Minnesota and the states around us. And listen to old podcasts, watch our videos. Don't forget now, we're all on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel now with this show, with our films, with our vlogs. Everything is going to that YouTube channel. So we make it a little bit easier on everybody.
Yeah, we made it too complicated. We overestimated how people find content. Thought we'd be all right keeping it separate. We got to make it easier.
Another on-air production meeting presented by OnX in the upper corner there.
Yeah.
We got to change that to white lettering.
Well, yeah, it'd probably be a good idea.
Sorry, Ben.
Maybe we should try things out before we just throw it up. Well, let's see how this goes.
If we were good at this, we probably would, but we've established that we're not.
Well, you're not. This is my first reformat, I guess, I've been through, so maybe I'm not good at it either. I've only been doing this a couple of years and already reformatting.
Well, besides our talent or lack thereof, we have some very talented people or informative people that we're going to bring on the show. We got a great show. Nate Huck joined us to talk about the waterfowl season structure in Minnesota, the Blue-Winged Teal numbers, why there was maybe a big drop in numbers this year, what that might mean for your hunting season coming up. We asked Nate probably a lot of questions that he didn't want to answer.
Well, he gave us some answers that he probably didn't want to answer, but
he's a good sport.
Yeah, he is. And he told, I think he had a conversation with you and he took the job that he'd be willing to hop on the show. And it's good to have people like that. You might not always agree with the Minnesota DNR, North Dakota Game and Fish, or any of your fishing game or DNR departments and officials say, but it's still good to get both sides of the story. We say that all the time. You need both sides, and we get their side and we try to attack it from all other sides to figure out what's going on, what the answers are, what's the reasoning behind some of the decisions made. Whether you like it or not, at least you can understand it.
Well, deer and walleyes are king and queen, I guess you'd say, and that is the largest segment of the population in Minnesota when it comes to the outdoors. So it's hard to manage deer across Minnesota and keep everybody happy. Same thing for walleyes. But waterfowl hunters may be the worst.
Well, it's tricky.
They may be the hardest to keep happy because there are so many variables involved. And when you're talking about a federal framework and a migratory bird and things like that, you know, walleyes, you can at least like, okay, this is Mille Lacs or this is Lake of the Woods. These are our or I shouldn't say Lake of the Woods because you're dealing with Canada there. But when you're dealing with just a body of water, you control so many of the variables there. And
it's one species.
Right.
You're talking ducks. You're talking a golden eye axe, a heck of a lot different than a blue-winged teal.
It's hard. It's hard, man. And when you have a state as tall as Minnesota to manage waterfowl hunters, you're managing waterfowl hunters and expectations more than you're managing waterfowl, other than creating habitat for nesting and breeding populations. So we're going to talk to Nate all about that. And what, you know, it was kind of surprising to hear North Dakota talk about potential restrictive frameworks in the future for North Dakota of 30 days versus 60.
39, by the way. North Dakota would go to 39.
39.
Yep.
Sorry. Yep. That was my fault. So when you start talking about that, and we talked about it on the podcast last week, and we've had a lot of people comment like, well, I remember 30-day seasons and, you know, more restrictive bag limits. So it wasn't that long ago that seasons were a little bit shorter.
Yeah. And by the way, for all those people who are like, don't you guys remember those days back in the 80s? Actually, no, I don't. I was negative 20 years old and you were, what, 5?
I was young.
So we don't, actually. We don't remember those days.
So anyway, we do know the history, though, and how things have fluctuated. And bottom line is we want what's best for the resource, of course. No question about it. So we'll get into that more. Plus, Joe Henry is going to join us, along with Will Hangman, veteran and somebody that is part of Warriors Never Give Up, an organization out of Sioux Falls who brought 12 vets up to the Pay It Forward event. 90 total veterans up there at Lake of the Woods participating in this year's Pay It Forward. What a great event. And we're going to find out more about that, how the fishing was, which it was ridiculous, of course, really good. And then just why it's important to have veterans events like that. But first, Dan, we better get into our sponsors.
Yeah, this week's show is brought to you by Lake of the Woods Tourism. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world. Plan a trip to Lake of the Woods at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. On X Hunt, see private land boundaries, offline maps, and more. Take 20% off a new membership with the code SJR20. Haybell Heights Campground and Resort. Fish Devil's Lake this summer at Haybell Heights. Learn more at haybellheights.com. Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at TasmanLake.com. Prairie Sportsman, the new season is over, but you can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. And Trails and Outfitters, trophy bear, walleyes, and whitetails in Saskatchewan. Visit trailsandoutfitters.com.
All right, Dan, we're going to do some headlines brought to you by Trails and Outfitters. Headlines. All right, Trails and Outfitters offering guided whitetail hunting this fall, spring black bear hunting, and fishing, ice fishing rentals, and of course, open water fishing on Tobin Lake in Saskatchewan. Find out more at trailsandoutfitters.com, and you'll get to see my whitetail hunt. That's over my shoulder.
It's over there.
It's kind of hard to see it.
Well, you keep scooting over to the other direction, so I have to keep sliding the camera over there, and your whitetail's gone. So.
I got a video of that deer, and we'll put it out on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel coming up later this fall. Dove opener is coming up September 1st. Of course, the early teal season in Minnesota is September 6th through the 10th. Don't forget, you cannot shoot teal before sunrise during the early teal season. Okay? Just want to put that out there.
Some people need to hear that more than others.
That's right. Also, this is a headline, Dan. This is a new podcast.
Yeah, you're right. It is a headline. I don't know where it's a headline, but it's a headline on our show.
Yeah, on our show, yeah, the Fish Hunt Forever podcast. And I want to do a contest. So here's the deal. Like, we're going to continue to bring you the content that you've come to enjoy and expect on this show, but we want to kind of spice it up a little bit since it's got a new name. We want to have a little bit of fun. We're wondering what you would like to see us do on the show, or comment below, whatever, and we're going to get entered into a contest. We're going to give away some of these DRC.
It's in manual focus, so.
Okay, I'll hold it back here.
Yeah, sorry.
Some DRC goose calls that are branded Fish Hunt Forever on them. These are really cool, like this camo color. This is a life sentence from the DRC call company, Corey Loeffler's company. This is hands down one of the most versatile goose calls. If you're new to goose calling, even if you're an experienced goose caller, this is just a real easy one to run. And we're going to give away one of those. We got some other calls. We got a Psycho. We've also got
my favorite.
The Squeaker Tweaker hybrid. Look at that.
Squeaker, huh?
Larry. So we're going to give away some calls. We're going to give away some, well, this is a Prairie Sportsman hat, but we got one with the Fish Hunt Forever logo on it as well. Dan's wearing it.
Well, we've got two different kinds of camos. We've got this one and the camo you're wearing with my logo on them. So not my logo, but our logo, the logo on my head.
What's happening right now?
I'm having a stroke.
So
help.
Yeah, go to our YouTube channel, Fish Hunt Forever. Comment below just say hi or say, hey, I want to hear more camera tips. Give me a tip on filming a dove hunt. Let's give him a dove hunting filming tip right now, Dan.
Ooh.
I got one.
Okay, good, because I've actually never done that.
So I have, and doves are hard to film. So here is a camera tip for you. Depending on what you're filming with, I love a shot cam on a dove hunt, because especially if you run it in slow-mo, because you're going to follow that dove with the camera because you're pointing your gun at it. Head mount, GoPro isn't bad, but my favorite way, especially if you're not filming or if you got if you're not shooting or if you have a tripod set up, do a wide shot with a focus on your spinner and set it up and hit record as the doves are coming in.
A manual focus on the spinner or what?
Yeah, probably. And just an wide open aperture.
Yep.
Because those doves are going to key on those spinners. And I don't know how many times I've filmed a dove getting shot right over a spinner or right next to it or something like that. So a lot of times you can set your focal point on the spinner and you're going to be able to get a dove in if you're self-filming with a tripod and a camera. So there is your filming tip. If you want more stuff like that or more interviews or more nonsense, I don't know, more trivia, just comment something below. Even if you just say this show is terrible.
No, don't comment.
We will enter you into a contest to win.
You probably won't win if you say the show is terrible.
A DRC goose call or some Fish Hunt Forever swag as well, too.
You know what I want to see in this show more?
You tell me.
David. Comment below.
Comment below that you want to see David more.
More David. I want more David. He's gone again. So if you're a David fanatic, you probably have already turned the show off because you haven't seen him or heard him. But he's not here again, and I'm mad. I want more David.
David. Yeah, David's not here this week. He'll be back. He might be back next week. I'm not sure.
We don't know. Nobody knows. He's probably going to have to go do something, I don't know, get on his motorcycle and go somewhere else again.
Well, he'll get into harvest season, then we won't see him until ice fishing.
The farming thing.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning into the new Fish Hunt Forever podcast. Find this now wherever you get your podcasts. If you already subscribe to the Sporting Journal podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you'll still get this same show. But if you haven't, make sure you subscribe to us in all those places and subscribe to the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel, which is now going to be carrying our show that you're watching or listening to right here. Joe Henry and Will Hangman are coming up later in the show, and Nate Huck, the migratory game bird consultant for the Minnesota DNR, talks Minnesota ducks and waterfowl season structures when we come back. Sick of eating tagged soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal wind for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20. All right, we're going to talk to Nate Huck right now, the migratory, let me see if I can get this right now, migratory game bird consultant with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. We're going to talk about the waterfowl season that's coming up, the possibilities of why the blue-winged teal counts were down 60%, and what the future of the season structures here in Minnesota and the Mississippi Flyway might look like. Nate, thanks for coming on the show this week. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So real quick, before we jump into this stuff, what is a migratory game bird consultant? What are you doing for the DNR, and what have you done?
Yeah, so essentially I'm in charge of setting waterfowl seasons and things like that. I chair our waterfowl committee, a lot of stuff related to season setting as well as monitoring, help. I work on the waterfowl report that we're going to chat about. But I spent 2 years prior to taking on this role in April as the resident game bird consultant, and I actually spent 4 years in both Wyoming and Pennsylvania as the waterfowl program person in those two agencies as well. So
oh, really?
Been around, a bunch of places.
All right. Well, this is just kind of a side note, or a tangent. But what was managing waterfowl in Pennsylvania and Wyoming? I mean, all three of these places seem completely different.
Yeah, but there's, a lot in common, especially when you start thinking about frameworks. In Wyoming, we were in the central, so, mid-continent mallard frameworks are, the same for Mississippi. Well, different seasons, but, our frameworks are dictated by the same group of birds. Atlantic, different issues, certainly, Atlantic flyway mallards are a different beast altogether, and certainly some far more restrictive regulations on Canada geese that are fun to deal with as well.
It's so crazy to think that there's an area in the United States where there's not as many Canada geese as we see here. There's so many of them. You see them everywhere. And that is, did you see black ducks over there at all?
Oh yeah, quite a few black ducks. Yep, especially cool. When you get into more flooded timber environments in PA. So, this also was not on my list, so I'm kind of just throwing this at you before we get into the blue-winged teal talk and everything else. But I think I may have emailed you about this. And I once again, I was spending time in the Twin Cities, and I was editing some footage for a Prairie Sportsman episode, and the amount of mallards that I see in the Twin Cities over the winter. You got a lot of storm retention ponds and some different parks and rivers and backwater and things like that stay open year round. And last year we hardly had any snow on the ground, so there was a couple of cornfields that were near the metro that were just covered in mallards. Are those, when you think about counting the population and counting mallards and what's going on with the migration, where some guys down south are worried that they're not seeing the birds come down there, I mean, what effect are these metro areas having on these waterfowl populations? Yeah, that's an interesting question. It's kind of tough to know for sure. I can think of some projects that have marked some of these more urban birds. Generally speaking, those are birds that are kind of being counted generally on the breeding grounds. These are probably birds, though, that are, just short stopping, for lack of a better term for it. Mallards just don't want to go any further south than they have to. So if they can find open water, they can find food that's not covered in snow, they're going to just stay. We see that more and more. I've seen videos of Canada in November. I guess that sometimes those are the place to be. These birds just wait as late as they can.
Well, and that's going to bring up a question that we'll talk about later in the show, and that's if something were to happen to our season structure, whether if it gets shorter, when does the season open at that point? Because it does seem like migrations are happening later and later, but we'll come back to that. We'll start on some easier stuff for you, Nate. Do you have to play biologist all fall, or do you get to do some hunting?
Oh, I do quite a bit of hunting. Yeah, for me, my year kind of does slow down a little bit during the fall, so I get to I take off quite a bit of time and chase birds for sure.
That's awesome. That's good. You hear about some of these guys that get into, become a biologist because they love to hunt. And then it's like, then they're too busy working all the time during the best parts. All right. Let's just start with doves. Do you, obviously migratory bird, doves probably fall under your jurisdiction there a little bit. What do you think the dove season's going to look like this year?
I've been seeing a lot of doves around. Certainly I'm here in Brainerd. Not the dove capital of Minnesota by any means, but I've been seeing quite a few birds around. I do wonder what this last little cold front did to birds, pushing them. It's anytime I start seeing 40s, I start thinking birds are going to be moving.
But you'd think with even colder weather north of us that maybe it would have pushed down some new birds, because we definitely had, we're kind of here in western Minnesota, kind of central western, kind of sort of a little bit south, and we've had doves around, and then we had those 40s overnight the other night, and I've been scouting a little bit, and it seems like the same amount of birds are around, but it's not very many. So I'm hoping we got to push the birds for our week-long dove season that we that we seem to get, because that's when people start. We got the teal season opening up and the Canada goose season opening up, and people start targeting some different species. And then if we start getting some colder weather, we'll start losing doves anyway. And then it never fails. You see one in the middle of November somewhere. Like, what are you doing, dove?
And it's just fat as all get out, and it's awesome. They're delicious.
That's right.
Because I'm going to shoot it.
That's cool. Well, let's talk teal a little bit. We've got a lot of water on the landscape right now. Birds are finding a lot of places to hide. I've been out looking for teal and even some geese a little bit. And boy, some of those shallower ponds have a lot more water in them. So I feel like ducks are going to look for maybe some of the seasonal places or some of the low spots in the field. There's a lot of flooded beans and flooded corn out there still. Do you think we've got birds out there that are hiding, or do you what do you think's going on with ducks right now in general as we gear up for the teal opener?
Oh, I think there's definitely, I mean, there's birds on the landscape. I've been seeing birds moving. I'm excited to get out. I'll be, I'll scout hard Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to be ricing on Monday, but I'll be, I'm going to scout hard. I'm sure there's birds on the landscape, and those freshly flooded things, if you can find any sheet water anywhere, even if it's, in beans and corn, you can probably kill a few teal in at this time of year for sure.
It's kind of funny because you complain when it's dry because, your ponds, you can't hunt some ponds because they've dried up. But then when you have an overabundance of water, all of a sudden the birds are all spread out. And duck hunters are never happy, I've determined. Until they're hunting. Anyway, then they're in their happy place. But so about a month ago, a report came out that Minnesota's blue-winged teal population was down 60%. Do you think that that's just because of how dry things were in May? Because that's when this took place, right? The aerial surveys were in May, or when did they survey these birds?
Yeah, so those surveys took place between May 6th and I think the last day was May 29th. It was, we got to, I know a lot of people have kind of pointed out that we did get some rain in mid-May, but, if you think about prior to mid-May, it was really dry. And those rains that came in mid-May just weren't in time for teal to settle. I'm fairly confident that those birds are, went west or north of us, somewhere in the Coteau, which is where the majority of blue wings are counted each year anyway. Minnesota usually only accounts for 1% to 4%. I think in the last 20 years, we got to 10% of the total blue-winged teal population counted in Minnesota once. We don't usually account for that many of the blue wings, and certainly it is a kind of a shocking number to see that decline. But I think it kind of explains itself in terms of the fact that these birds just settle wherever it's wettest.
So the only thing that I thought was weird about it is that all the other ducks, the ringnecks, wood ducks, gadwall, shovelers, cans, redheads, buffleheads, were up 119%. Are they later nesters, later migrants?
Well, so I think there's two things going on there. We did actually see a fair drop in the 2024 count of those other birds. I actually went in recently and looked at it, and it was really driven by an increase in wood ducks and ringneck ducks. So I'm not sure what happened in the counts in 2024 that all of a sudden then we had a big uptick in wood ducks and ringers this year, but it kind of seems like that's what happened there.
Okay. Well, Canada geese were up a little bit from last year, and I noticed one duck. You just kept excluding scop from some of these results. Why is that?
Yeah, a big reason why scop. We do have a scop estimate in there, and we include them, but their migration is just so interestingly timed, I guess, for lack of a better way of describing it. They do these stepwise migrations depending on how far, where the ice line is in Canada and things like that. So some years, we do a really great job of counting scop, and some years we do a really poor job. But in the end, any scop we're counting aren't breeding in Minnesota anyway. They're headed for places further north. And this year, as you can see, we counted, 112?
Yeah, same as Canada.
Yeah, I think we saw like 2 or 3, scop from the plane. It was very few. So,
well, I want to get into this a little bit more. Nate Huck is our guest. We got to take a break. More when we come back.
Now is the time to start thinking about chasing big walleyes on Devil's Lake. Get on the fish at Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Haybale Heights makes it easy for you to make memories on legendary Devil's Lake with guided fishing and lodging packages. Or bring your own boat and rent one of their cabins on East Bay. Haybale Heights offers a private marina, fish cleaning station, and the opportunity to relax and enjoy your bucket list trip to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. To book your trip, visit haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com.
We're back. Nate Huck, our guest. He's a migratory game bird consultant with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, talking about the waterfowl season, numbers here in Minnesota, and what the season structure could look like in the future. So the early teal season, the early Canada goose season, they both kick off September 6th. The teal season goes through September 10th, and the Canada goose season goes longer than that. There's always been, I think it's starting to get clearer for most hunters now that we're a few years into this. But last year, we were set up on a pond. There was another group of people set up, public pond right next to us. And we actually had a fair bit of amount of mallards around early last year, which normally we don't see mallards that early. And we had a few mallards around. I think we had some nesting pairs on this particular body of water. There were wood ducks around and some teal, of course. And we were waiting for sunrise to come around, and we were seeing flocks of mallards and wood ducks and teal buzzing around before sunrise. And we heard guns going off like crazy next to us. And sometimes it was at flocks that were not blue-winged teal that we could see from our vantage point in any case. So let me put this scenario out there for you. Do you think that if you're out there teal hunting, you get a flock of geese come out, because you can hunt geese half hour before sunrise, but teal at sunrise, which I think is a great rule, by the way. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the early teal season anymore. The only reason I pushed for it back in the day was because I was hoping it was going to push our regular season opener back into October, so we could have a chance at some late November mallards. With that not being the case, I'm not a huge fan of the early teal season, but I think if you're out there teal hunting and it's 20 minutes before sunrise, so legal for Canada geese, are you going to shoot at a goose that comes in?
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. It's certainly legal, and yeah, I'm going to. But that said, I mean, typically it seems like, granted, there's a few birds moving around, but for the most part, Canadas aren't in the air by the time until just about sunrise anyway. So,
yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Sometimes when you're out in a field and you're like, we've been patterning them, scouting them. They're coming in about 7:30. We got time to set up. Take your time, whatever, and then you always get burned. It seems like they always come in earlier when you don't expect them to. I want to get back to those population numbers just a little bit. Total breeding duck abundance, excluding scop, was 8% above the 24 estimate, but 32% below the long-term average. Talking about bluebills again, we had that snail die off about 20 years ago. And honestly, I feel like we see more bluebills, at least around here, more in the spring. Like when the divers come through in the spring, we'll see them along the highways or whatever, and then they're gone. They're usually just here for a couple of days and they're gone.
You know better than to talk to me about bluebills. It's a sore subject.
I've shot 2 here in the last.
It's 2 more than I've ever shot in my life. Yeah. I'm salty about it, okay?
I think 2 in the last 5 or 6 years. Now, granted, we don't target divers as much as we used to, but we shot one at Lake of the Woods. Sorry, I shot one at Lake of the Woods a couple of years ago when we were out in the layout boats, and then shot one here when we were hunting some water one day. But we just don't see them that much, it seems like, in the fall anymore. Are those numbers just down overall, or have they shifted west? When we talk to the guys in North Dakota, they say, well, our bluebill numbers are actually kind of going up. Like, are they? Did we lose them because of the snail thing? But also,
we don't have as much freshwater shrimp as we used to have, and North Dakota's got a lot of shrimp in their ponds. South Dakota's got shrimp in their ponds. Is it a forage issue, or what's going on with the bluebills, you think?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors. Their population has been relatively stable, maybe slight decline, but they're still one of the most populous ducks in North America. So there's still a lot of bluebills on the landscape. I think it's driven by a lot of, food availability. They've certainly shifted around the landscape and potentially maybe a little further west. But that said, they still make it to, central, they make it to the Mississippi between Iowa and Illinois usually every year on their way south. So, they're around, but I do think, food availability kind of has driven them into different places.
Is there a plan to get more shrimp in our waters in Minnesota, or what can we do?
We do have some research that's been investigating, how we can maybe reestablish it and where is a suitable place for that. So we've been working on it, and certainly something we'll continue to look at.
There's been, and this isn't really a question for you, but I know there's been discussion about, when we start talking about the walleyes and rearing ponds for walleyes, or even bait dealer ponds and things like that, and that is also having an impact on our freshwater shrimp population out there. When you throw a bunch of walleyes in a rearing pond, if there's any shrimp in there, that could be an issue. So, if somebody has a pond on their property, can they stock it with shrimp? Is that a thing? Do you know?
I don't know the rules on that.
Okay. Asking for a friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. Well,
you didn't say no.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's something to look into. I got to ask you about cranes and swans for a couple of reasons, just because every year I bring this up, because I'm a huge fan of Sandhill Crane. I think they're cool birds. I think they sound amazing. I think they look cool. They're fun to watch. They're delicious to eat. I think they're fun to hunt because their eyesight is so good. They're actually can be pretty difficult to decoy. They're popular to hunt in a lot of places, particularly that mid-continent population, which does cut through the northwest part of Minnesota. So we have a season on them there. That eastern population now has grown quite a bit. You can hunt them now in a number of states across their migration route. Wisconsin introduced a bill into the legislature earlier this year about opening a hunting season on them in Wisconsin. I mean, is this kind of a dead topic in Minnesota to expand statewide Sandhill Crane hunting season? Is this I know it's more of a social issue than it is a biological issue. Is this something where we would, if we want to see one, we have to go through the legislature?
No, we do have the authority in DNR to create an eastern Sandhill Crane hunt, and we are looking into it. We're actually working on a revision of the Eastern Sandhill Crane Management Plan right now, which includes a revision to the harvest strategy. And I think when we get through that, I think there'll be a better place to have more of a discussion on what that might look like. But certainly, at this time, we're I don't even want to say how many years. I don't know. We can certainly have a discussion about it. I'm always happy to talk about it, but it's fun. I just don't know what it looks
It's like. Fun to talk about. Sometimes you get in trouble when you talk about it. I understand how that goes. Same with the swans. It's so funny when the Waterfowl town hall took place virtually a couple years back. And for the entire thing, I had my virtual hand raised in there, and they finally came to me at the very end. And I brought up cranes and trumpeter swans because our trumpeter swan population is, the recovery and the success story of trumpeter swans in Minnesota is amazing, but we are so far above population goals, and they are bullies in the sloughs. And they could be having, I don't know how much research there is out there, but they could be having a detrimental impact on our breeding population of other waterfowl here in Minnesota. And I'm not out here begging for a trumpeter swan season, but biologically, hopefully the population can sustain it. Again, it's a social issue, but I brought that up in that town hall, and I remember there was somebody. He'll remain nameless at this point, but there was somebody that's in the waterfowl world and in the management world, and he texted me. He's like, "Way to throw in a hand grenade at the at the end of the town hall here," and it's like, well, when it comes to hunters, I mean. Not that we're, bloodthirsty, want to hunt everything and kill everything on the landscape, but Sandhill cranes are good to eat. Swan's kind of a unique deal. We just watched a Wild Upland episode. Callie Parnley, she went hunting trumpeters in Utah. When I saw that it was a swan hunting episode, I thought for sure they were going to be talking about tundras or whatever, and here it was trumpeters. So obviously trumpeter swans are hunted other places. And we get trumpeters and tundras that come through Minnesota, so I know that's part of the reason why we've never had a tundra swan season, or at least not in my memory. But I mean, what about trumpeter swans right now? What's going on with them?
Yeah, so there was a general swan EA that was done a few years ago, which allowed the take of those eastern population tundra swan states to be able to legally take trumpeter swans as well. But that being said, the way that that's set up, it's not set up for a state like Minnesota to even be able to open a season at all. I would say if we all started on this tomorrow, just working as hard as we could, it's more than a decade away. We need to do a few more research projects, particularly the effects of trumpeter swans on wild rice, and those conflict issues with things like mallards and Canada geese and other waterfowl species. And we need to better understand those conflicts before we can even have a discussion about a trumpeter swan hunting season EA. That said, we are working on the trumpeter swan management plan too right now. So,
good. You need to have it. I mean, that just need to. I mean, what are we at? Over 30,000? What? 30,000? 35,000 or something?
Yeah, and so, I mean, keeping in mind that estimate is only for, where we actually are surveying waterfowl in the state. Yeah, I think it was 38,000 birds, but doesn't include the northeast part of the state.
So 100,000 then probably. No, I'm just kidding. No, whatever. There's definitely lots of trumpeters out there, and, it's something that should be at least discussed. So potentially some changes to cranes and swans in the future somewhere. And let's talk about the future a little bit here, Nate, when it comes to our waterfowl season structure. Now, North Dakota Game and Fish had a podcast out last week that I listened to, and I was kind of surprised that this came up, but at the very end, they talked about we've lost a couple million birds in the overall waterfowl population in the last couple of years. If there's some more decline, if there's some issues out there, bird flu, whatever the case may be, that potentially some seasons could be changed. And he's obviously talking about the central flyway, but currently they're in a liberal structure, and they have a moderate, and then he said they could even go straight to a restricted, which I was kind of surprised about, and that would be a 30-day waterfowl season, 30-day duck season, along with I think a 3-day bag limit is what he talked about. And I've had just little whispers of going to a 30-day here in the Mississippi Flyway and shortening things up. And there's been some people, so especially some of the old timers are clamoring for a shorter season and a more conservative bag limit. Let's just overview of what possibilities the Mississippi Flyway has when it comes to, do we have that same thing, a liberal, moderate, and restricted season structure that we can utilize here?
Yeah, we do. And so it's a little bit different in the central versus in the Mississippi. So in the Mississippi Flyway, moderate season would be 45 days, but still maintaining that 6-bird bag limit. I can't remember. I think there would be a change in the hen mallard bag limit in a 45-day season. But I might be misspeaking there. And then the restrictive season is a 30-day season with a 3-bird bag limit. Okay. And it is potential. There's actually it's been a source of kind of tension in the flyways when this strategy was redone. But it's a pretty small set of circumstances that could actually lead to a moderate framework. It's actually almost as likely that you could just jump straight from a liberal to a restrictive framework.
Interesting.
So let me ask this question: would that be a state decision to go to that liberal or restricted season?
No, so that would be
the Fed
flyway.
That.
Yep, that'll be a flyway wide decision, and so we'll be the reports here will come out in September 5th is kind of the day they're supposed to come out, and so we'll have a better idea then. But yeah, all of the flyways will follow the the recommendation, or
Yeah, because we were worried that all of a sudden Minnesota goes 30 days and 3 ducks, and Arkansas is like, yee-hoo! 60 days.
Well, and then the question comes in with Canada. What would Canada do? Would they be part of that?
So Canada's on a different regulatory cycle. I'm not sure where they're at, and they would be making their own decisions as a part of that.
Sure. So we could still see Saskatchewan, or I don't know what Manitoba regulations are, but eight hen pintails could get whacked still in Saskatchewan, and we'd be down to a 30-day season with 3 ducks. Could be. I'd like to think their management up there is pretty good. I don't want to say that would happen. I feel like they'd be on top of it, but who knows? It's the Wild West.
Yeah, but I mean, to clarify though, that they do harvest considerably less birds.
For sure.
Most states do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you can shoot 8 brown ducks.
And you can't.
While you're up there. You can't.
They're all brown. Yeah. Tell me a hen pintail from a hen mallard in a wheat field.
So September 5th. So when you say just a few minor things could happen to make it change, like what determines a change in structure?
So we're really looking at the mallard breeding population and then the total pond counts. And so we have there's a matrix that goes into that decision making process. And so if the mallard population drops below a certain level and the pond count is at a certain level, then you can move into those various packages.
What I noticed, I was looking into that report deeper. So we have the kind of the cliff notes on the fishhuntforever.com website. But if you dig into the link and you go to the Minnesota DNR website, you can actually see the full report and some of those counts going back to, I think, 1968, maybe something like that. Yep. And in there's also a pond count, and then it changed. It must have been in the 80s or something. It's like there's a type 1 wetland and a pond count. What's the differentiation there? What's considered a pond in that scenario?
So that's a type. We have our type 1 temporary wetlands, which are generally those smallest wetlands. Yeah, those seasonal wetlands. They're wet for a couple of weeks. They're really important for pair establishment. But then, type 2 to 5 that's listed in that report are just larger wetlands. And as the number gets larger, they become increasingly large, deeper, more permanent.
So by putting pond counts in there, are you estimating, is that because you're just talking about overall how much habitat is out there? Or are you saying, all right, we did our counts, we saw 6 ducks there, we saw 54 ducks there, whatever, but there was 10 ponds here with lots of cattails. There's probably 12 ducks in that pond. Is a pond count for habitat or for estimating that there's some ducks that you missed?
No, so that's for habitat. The way that we're estimating that we may have missed is actually we have ground counts, and so those are counts that go back in. They follow directly below where the plane counted, and because I mean we know that you're going to miss some birds from the plane, and so we hope that those ground counts are then reflective of those birds that they counted, but also those birds they missed. And so if you notice in that report, there's actually a VCF, visibility correction factor, and so that's the number of blue wings, for example, that we counted on the ground versus how many we counted from the air.
Interesting. All right. So if you have your breeding population counts are at a certain threshold, it's a dry year, so your pond counts at a certain threshold, that will immediately that will consequently trigger a more restrictive type season then.
Yeah. That's the basics of it. It's there's a little more. It's it can be a little complicated. Especially Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan. We send in our numbers into that as well, and so that's the big reason why we fly our survey. But those federal counts are really what drives the drives the boat.
You know, it's so funny. Every year we talk about waterfowl and season structures and bag limits and all that, and it seems like the Flyway Council is this shadowy group of Illuminati, you know, meeting in a back room, smoking cigars. Their faces are covered or what. It's like this. It's like breaking into this secret society to find out, and maybe it's not that secretive. But just for somebody on the outside, it seems like finding out who these guys are making these Flyway Council decisions are, this group of old duck hunters that like to wield all the power. What do you think the odds are that we could see a restricted season or the moderate or restrictive season here in Minnesota in the future?
I mean, I certainly can't make any predictions. Just simply saying because I've thought we were going to be drier last year than we were. This year certainly it looks like from the pilot reports things are pretty dry. So, whether or not that means we go restrictive, I don't know. I would like to clarify. The Flyway Council has been some shadowy figure.
Seems like it.
I sit on the technical committee. Our council member is Dave Trava, our wildlife section manager.
What?
So
oh yeah, I knew
not
that.
some secret.
Yeah, yeah, I know Dave. Yeah, that's funny. Well, yeah, it just seems like trying to communicate sometimes with some of those guys, at least in the past. It seems like maybe it's gotten easier now, but in the past it's been kind of hard to try to figure out what some of the decision-making reasons were and things like that. And let me just ask you this question, because since we put out that podcast with Bill Haas a couple of weeks ago, we've had a lot of people comment about regulation changes. And then, of course, when we talked about what they said on the Game and Fish podcast last week about a more restrictive season, a lot of people have said, well, I thought hunters don't influence, wildlife populations.
Waterfowl populations.
So obviously there's been cases of overhunting and problems that we've had in the past. The way things are managed now, it seems like we got a pretty good handle on it, where Mother Nature has a bigger influence than hunter harvest. Would this be a situation where, basically it's Mother Nature dictating that that Mother Nature's lowered the population enough that we just need to be a little bit more careful? Or for that person out there that says, I thought hunters didn't influence populations that much, what do you tell them?
Sure. I think it's I guess the way I look at it is, regulated hunting, as it stands right now, doesn't generally impact populations. But that being said, yeah, you certainly get to a certain point where it's just good governance to make decisions to be a little more restrictive, in recognition that, those populations are reduced. And so these strategies that we've established, driven by adaptive harvest management, these were revised in 2017, and it just, you have to have thresholds in there eventually to establish these moderate, restrictive, and potentially even closed seasons, just in recognition that eventually the populations could theoretically be too low to sustain that harvest.
Well, and just to be clear, we want to make sure that the resource is always there. So whatever needs to be done, we're okay with. And if that means a more restrictive season, that's all right. It's going to be a little painful, but if that's what it takes for the health of the population, we're good with it. So this question has been more on my mind than, what if we go to a more restrictive season? But if we do, say we go to a 30-day season, when do we start? When would we open in Minnesota? In your crystal ball fortune telling mind there, when do you think we would open? How would that be determined?
That's a great question. I've thought about it a little bit. I don't have a good answer for you. The opening day and closing days in the frameworks, so that Saturday nearest September 24th and Sunday nearest January 31st are set in by legislation. So those don't change. They used to change, but that legislation set them in stone. So we could open as early as that. I think there will be a pretty large discussion, internally. I'm not sure, what the public comment will look like on that, to be honest. But I expect a long, lengthy discussion on the way to formulate those days to maximize opportunity within that 30 days.
And there's no question. I mean, that's what you want. And it's hard to manage for everybody. The 3 zones, I've said many times, I think is great in Minnesota. We're such a tall state. You almost need to have those 3 zones. The guys, when we talk about a later duck season, because we got T-shirts printed that say make duck season late again. We're proponents of that later season opportunity. Now, I understand not everybody has that opportunity or wants that opportunity. They're busy deer hunting or whatever. But to me, the way I've looked at it, particularly if you want to talk about teal or wood ducks or some of the early migrants, we still have an opportunity for a lot of those birds in mid-October, or early October, especially the last few years. I mean, we've had, when we've had some of our season splits, it's been 90 degrees in some of those splits with zero migration happening. So this is just my opinion again, but we could push that regular season opener back into October again. And other than some people would be mad because they like hunting in September, I guess. Other than that, I don't think you would see a whole lot of difference in success rates being out there. Of course, a few blue-winged teal might push south before that, but I'm not sure how many are doing it, at least in recent years in our experience out there. So if you had a 30-day season, my gosh, I would not want to be the one making that decision, because you're going to have people that love that late September opener, but you have a lot of people that want to see an opportunity to shoot mallards in November. I mean, where we're at, yeah, we got local birds, but I think the early teal season, some of the early Canada goose season, I think that pushes some of the birds, pressures them a little bit. And then when you open up in late September, you get your local birds pushed out, and then we sit and wait. And it's usually November for us before we start to see, Canada geese come down and mallards come down. I mean, you'll see trickles of migrations, particularly on some north wind days, but it's really that mid-November in our part of the state where we really see a good push. So that's going to be a difficult decision.
Yeah, it's we'll see what happens, and certainly it'll be an interesting discussion on it regardless. So, but yeah, I think there's ways to be flexible in there and try and accommodate people's needs and or desires. I guess maybe needs isn't the right way to say it, but desires. I certainly
and their wants for sure.
Yeah, I certainly heard from hunters in the South Zone with that longer split that were very unhappy about the moving days into later season where they feel like they're going to be ice fishing. So
in the Southern Zone,
I'm just telling you what I heard.
It's the same people that complained and then got the split shortened, and so then they were happy, and then the people that were upset that the split got shortened, it's the guys who wanted to hunt late that spoke up, and so now the split's longer, and so now you have those same people that were up. You
remember when I said earlier in the show that duck hunters are never happy? Yeah,
it's the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
It's so tough, and to me, it's like, to have the split and let the Southern Zone go longer, it just is the perfect scenario, the perfect way to manage a state like this, especially when you have the Mississippi River. I mean, that's obviously not frozen, late season. I mean, we're technically in the Central Zone here, and I would love to see a 10-day split here in the Central Zone for where we're at. We're close to the Southern Zone, so we're a little south, but I would love to see a longer split. I mean, inevitably, we have mallards, and sometimes a lot of mallards. I didn't shoot my first mallard in Minnesota until the last day of the waterfowl season last year.
You missed 100 others, but that's beside the point. No, I don't.
Not true. But I mean, we saw mallards during the early teal season, and then we didn't see them again until the last day of the season last year. So obviously that's my experience in our part of the state here. Everybody's got something a little bit different, but it's hard to please everybody. And so many suggestions have been floated the last couple of years. Well, if it's 60 days, can I, or if it gets shortened to 30, can I buy a 30-day late season license? I mean, would there ever be a possibility where you could set a 30-day season, but it could open those legislatively decided dates that you talked about earlier, but I could choose, almost like when you buy a non-resident license in one of the other states, you have to choose your dates. Could we choose our 30 days in Minnesota?
No. And I can tell you why. It would be incredibly difficult to model out predicted harvest. That's one of the important aspects of the way that these harvest strategies work. We are actually modeling out predicted harvest to understand how it may or may not impact the population. And so I've seen the choose your season floated around, and the inability to be able to understand how that would increase people's harvest is a major driver in why that couldn't work. And we would just have to be, it would take a long time for us to get to that point if we wanted to do it, and I can just say it's not something that's been discussed at the flyways.
So, what do you mean, like being able to predict the harvest? If you have September 24th as your first possible date through, December 1st or whatever the dates were, that's our open season, but you can only hunt 30 days. And then when you buy your license, your 30 days starts today or whatever the case may be. How would being able to predict that, is that because you guys have to set a front end and back end, or what? How does that work?
Yeah. So, we have the frameworks that are established, but those frameworks are assuming that everybody in a given area is going to be hunting either the 30 days, the 45 days, or the 60 days that are allowed in that area. And so if you all of a sudden open up that window, and now you're allowing people who are, let's use the South Zone as an example, they're on Swan, and those early hunters are going to be able to harvest their birds, but then you have guys choosing to hunt late because they know they're going to have good cornfield access. We're essentially maximizing the harvest for each and every individual, and right now those seasons don't do that, right? If you're mostly an early season hunter, there's going to be some late days that you're going to lose out on. If you're a late hunter, you're going to lose out on some early days. And so
you're saying it's managed for the hunter not to hunt the entire season, essentially, and that's how you kind of get your estimates.
Well, I wouldn't say that. It's just we can predict based on the history of the way that we've set seasons. We can predict hunter harvest. And so since we have no experience doing that, where the choose your season, even within a framework, it would just be really hard to model out, how many more ducks people would harvest.
Sure. Well, I've asked you a bunch of questions that you probably didn't want me to ask you, but I appreciate you putting up with me and answering what you can. I would sit here and talk for hours, but we got Joe Henry waiting in the wings here, so we're gonna let you go for now, Nate. But we'd love to have you back on and continue this, because I could talk ducks. Ask any of the waterfowl guys that I've had on the show. We could sit and talk for hours. And
there's a reason they waited till the end of the waterfowl town hall to call on Brett. It wasn't on accident.
It's entirely true. So. I love it. It's we're passionate about it, and we love it, and we want to see what's best for the resources. No question about it. But we also do want to try to maximize opportunity for the hunter. And when it comes down to one of those things where when you discuss why there are fewer and fewer hunters every year, there's a couple of things, and this is for a longer discussion, but there's a couple of things. It's access to quality habitat, it's hunting opportunity and creating positive hunting opportunity for those hunters that are out there. And when you look at the average waterfowl hunter today. You got the few guys that hunt just the opening weekends. They just walk out with a dozen old floater decoys and they shoot their teal or whatever, and they're happy. And then you got the guys that have the 24-foot trailers with 1,000 full bodies and diesel pickup trucks, and they're spending a lot of money to go waterfowl hunt. So when you start talking about a declining resource or excluding opportunities for some of those guys that are putting a lot of money into it, or if they have a negative experience out there, all of a sudden they're like, those decoys were kind of expensive. I don't know if I'm going to spend that kind of money again this year. So it's definitely a delicate balance to manage waterfowl and waterfowl hunters specifically. So I don't envy you guys, Nate, and I appreciate you coming on here. We'll let you go now. Nate Huck, a Migratory game bird consultant with the DNR. Thanks for the time today on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to chat anytime.
If you want to catch a big walleye, go where the big walleyes are. Lake of the Woods is the walleye capital of the world, with a variety of resorts and lodging facilities offering full-service fishing. Lake of the Woods is also home to sturgeon, sauger, perch, trophy pike, muskie, smallmouth bass, burbot, and more. Plan your trip to Lake of the Woods today. Go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com. That's lakeofthewoodsmn.com. All right, Joe Henry from Lake of the Woods Tourism joins us now on the show. Joe, how's it going?
I tell you what, Brett, we literally just stepped off of a charter boat. We got a cooler full of walleyes. Life is good.
Heck yeah. Who do you got there next to you, Joe?
This is it's my buddy Will Hangman, and Will Hangman is a board member for an organization, veterans organization called Warriors Never Give Up. And we have our 12th annual paid forward veterans event going on right now as we speak up at Lake of the Woods. We have 90 people here, and Warriors Never Give Up actually has 12 veterans here this year. And Will, maybe just tell everybody about Warriors Never Give Up.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. What a great day today, Joe. Got spoiled.
Hey, wasn't that fun?
Oh, man. Probably one of the better days of fishing in my life.
That's awesome.
Well, and you fish, and in all fairness, you're from the South Dakota.
South Dakota,
Sioux
yes.
Falls?
Sioux Falls area, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And you fish Missouri River and other lakes in South
Glacial
Dakota?
Lakes, yep. Bitter, Wabae, Thompson, places like that, yeah. But this is a different level up here for walleye, that's for sure.
It was a good day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so as far as, again, so appreciative of having me on. We brought 12 veterans up here. Warriors Never Give Up is a nonprofit led by veterans with the intent of getting them back out into the outdoors. We provide them all expense paid trips to events like this, fishing, hunting. Obviously we're in the pheasant capital of the world, so we do a lot of pheasant hunts, trying to get into big game, ducks, geese, anything. And really what the intent is to get a small group of veterans, about 10, reconnected with their brothers and sisters. The carrot is the outdoor event.
You put up a nice fishing trip to Lake of the Woods.
Yeah, hey,
How you sign up for it?
My hand went up right away. But that's the carrot to get them there. But really what we want to do is get them together at the table. And like I like to say all the time, we eat supper as a family, and that's the literal and figurative example of that is we're going to get together and we're going to reconnect with people that have shared experiences as us, different generations. We brought 3 Vietnam era vets up with us, along with all the way down to pretty young vet, that was, Iraq War, Afghanistan War. I consider myself a young vet, and reconnect, and man, it's just a magical thing.
When you out of fairness, you consider yourself a young vet. You are. But 24 years of service, retired military, you're in the Army.
Yes.
You had 2 deployments, is that right?
Yes, Afghanistan and Djibouti, Africa.
Yeah. And, Will himself has dealt with a lot of things. But now he shared with me that now that he's out of the military, he wants to give back. And part of giving back, he notices, you often get more in return. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think that's what
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I call it selfish, but man, I need this for me too. And I know how it makes me feel, and I want to drag that veteran along with me and make them feel what I feel. because you can't unless you join us on things like this.
Well, it's kind of cool because we pulled up. Will and I were fishing together today in a boat, and 2 other boats with folks from his organization, Where's Never Go, pulled up next to us at the docks, and there were smiles and, hey, what's your big fish? What's your big fish? And so and so got a 28 today. 28. We got a 25 on our boat, and the person that caught the 25 on our boat, Jerry, he was Jerry Roberts. I mean, Vietnam era. He has 3 Purple Hearts. He was blown up by a mortar. He didn't even remember 2 of his Purple Hearts because of just all the trauma he had dealt with. And he got that 25-incher, and it took him a while to bring it in, didn't it?
Yeah. It's a good fish. I was envious, but I was so happy for him.
Yeah.
Just what a great experience for him to be able to do that.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah.
We had so it was we shot a Midwest Outdoors TV show, which is so nice each year about our event. And so we had Greg Jones, the host of Midwest Outdoors, certainly a videographer. But then we had Suzanne and Jerry Roberts, and Suzanne's Jerry's spouse, and she's here as a caregiver for Jerry. And they talked a lot about Jerry talked a lot about. He spoke at our event last night, and he mentioned how when he came back, he was messed up, and he didn't remember a lot of things. And in a nutshell, he started suppressing his feelings with alcohol and other things, and came to a crossroads where he was going to lose his marriage, and he just wasn't going down a good path. He had to make some decisions. He chose the right path, and he's currently alcohol free, and he certainly has got a very strong faith, and he and his wife are doing fantastic. But it's a story we hear, Will, all too often, isn't it?
Very much. And sometimes we don't hear the story. We talked a little bit about that today, but it's those guys and gals that are just struggling with things, and this is an event like this is an outlet for them to reconnect and to feel like put a big smile on their face, forget about those things. And in case of Jerry, this has been since 1966. Jeez. I mean, to think about how much time has elapsed since he got a mortar wound to the head and had traumatic brain injury. And 2 more Purple Hearts on top of that. I mean, he's been struggling with this since 1966. So this is a lifelong battle, and we talked about that at length too. It's a lifelong battle for these folks, whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, substance abuse. I mean, there's all sorts of things that can come along with their experience in the military and their deployments or combat, non-combat, those types of things.
And you never know. You never know who it is. You can't tell.
No. A lot of it's unseen. Most of the veterans walking around here, I mean, we do have some aging veterans that are, walking aids or whatever, but most of them look pretty good. But I guarantee you that the vast majority of them are fighting something. And like I use Jerry as an example, they've been fighting that for years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just say thank you for your service, and that's great that you brought 12 vets up with you. And we've talked about this many times. The outdoors, we all love it, of course, but spending time in the outdoors offers the ability to heal, to take your mind off the real world, relax a little bit, and particularly when you can bring somebody that doesn't always have those opportunities to go hunting or go fishing, to go out there and experience it for themselves, and maybe even create this new hobby for some of these people, get them into the activity. And some, and Will, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these guys, they probably need something like that, something to occupy some of their time, something to look forward to, something to do, something to go out there to enjoy, to help them through some of these processes that they go through.
Absolutely. And when you talk about creating a new hobby, a lot of these guys, that is what they used to do when they were younger. Most of these folks grew up in the Midwest. They hunted with their father when they were young. They went fishing with their grandfather. Those are happy times in their life. They've gone through life and all their turmoil and just life, and this can reconnect them back with that. It brings back those happy memories. And in your example, is like, man, I haven't felt that good in so long. I can't wait. I want to go again. So absolutely, we see it every event that we do, and I'm sure Joe sees it with this event. That reconnection to the outdoors.
Well, and how,
then, like what you're talking about with needing something, sometimes they don't know what they need until they get it. And something like this, we see it so many times, and I'm sure, Joe, the 90 veterans here, I would guarantee you the vast majority of them, when they leave on Thursday, they're like, I needed this. Whether I thought I did or I didn't, I needed this. And
well,
I can't wait to put something on my calendar.
How important is it that they're doing this with other vets as well, too? Because, I've been at enough of those events that you can take a guy hunting, you can take a vet hunting, and he'll probably enjoy it. But you put him with a handful of other vets who have experienced some of the same things that he has, and all of a sudden now he has somebody that he can talk to, somebody that can relate to him, and I'm sure it's just on a completely different level when they're surrounded by some of their fellow veterans.
Absolutely. They're going to talk and they're going to open up more, even with a perfect stranger veteran, than they are with a, if you want to use the word, a civilian that doesn't share any sort of experience with them. It could be a Navy veteran that's going to feel more comfortable talking to an Army veteran just because there's a shared experience. It's service to country. It's living outside of the country. It's leaving your family. It's whatever. Those things are all shared. So that's why we do what we do. And that's why Joe and his crew up here have been doing this event for now 12 years. It's the same thing. When we put these folks together, they heal and they talk and they laugh and they share and they cry. Maybe some of them haven't cried in a long time, and the emotion comes out because they feel comfortable doing it in front of me because I have something in common with them. So yeah, it's life altering in many ways.
I'll tell you, Brett, we talk about our event, and every year there's magic. Every year the group's special. Every year there's magic. And I think that we create the right environment. And you hit it on the head. It's one thing to go in nature. That's good. That's really good. But to be able to be in nature and enjoy these activities with other veterans, it's magical every year. We create the environment. The magic is veteran rubbing elbows with other veterans in the outdoors. That's what it is. We were on a charter boat today for 8 hours, and I'll tell you what, we came away with a different kind of bond when we hit the dock than when we left. And we had a lot of very serious conversations when we're running from spot to spot, and we had a lot of camaraderie. And I don't know how else to say it. Well,
no, it's a comfort. It's a feeling of comfort. And a lot of times a veteran doesn't feel comfortable. Yeah. And when they don't feel comfortable, they don't want to talk. And so for Joe, he sat next to me on the boat, so I can speak for Joe and I even just like I felt comfortable more so sharing things with him just because I know where his heart is, and he loves the vets. And, and there was another vet on there that I looked up to. I did 24 years in the Army. I did everything that was asked of me. I did my job. I deployed. I did all those things. But my gosh, I look at Jerry and I'm in awe. And that made me comfortable, and that made me more appreciative of Joe. And the guides, and it was just amazing.
Speak to Will, if you would, speak to what you see with some of the younger veterans coming in and how they don't feel like they're as deserving because they look at a guy like Jerry who's in Vietnam and got blown up, and maybe speak to that a little bit because we have we got to help everybody.
Yeah. What we find in Warriors Never Give Up, and I'll speak to that, is a generational gap of younger veterans saying that they don't deserve to participate in our events, whether it's a pheasant hunt, a fishing event, it doesn't matter what it is. The standard answer we get is, that's not for me. That's for them. I didn't experience what they experienced. So why don't you send them? And our board, we look at that through a different lens, and Joe looks at it through a different lens with his folks too. We talked about this at length. This is for everybody. This is for all of those veterans. Everybody fought a battle, fought a war, whether they stepped foot in Vietnam or never left the country in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. you deserve it. You've served your country. There's people that want to help you. There's organizations that want to give. And there's folks like us that are veterans that want to give as well. And we want you here. I want that 25-year-old veteran to sit next to that Vietnam veteran. Because, man, what a smile it puts on their face to learn and to tell the stories from 40, 50 years ago about the way the world worked.
Yeah.
And it really puts things in perspective for a younger veteran. And then what it also allows to do is an older veteran, it can put things in perspective for them as well about the generational challenges that our younger vets have gone through with the Iraq wars and the Afghanistan war, and basically since September 11th in a constant state of conflict. That's new in our world in the United States, is a constant state of conflict for 25 years.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I'm glad you guys are doing it, and what a great event there. And to me, I think there should be veterans events going on all the time, year round, doing all the things everywhere. I can't stress how much I enjoy those events, and I'm glad that they're taking place, and I want to see more of them for all the guys out there, and every vet out there. Go do this stuff. It's a lot of fun, and I can't speak for the veterans out there, but you get a lot more comfortable when the fish are biting. And at a place like Lake of the Woods, Joe, maybe you just give us a quick fishing report, and then we'll let you guys get back to the event back there.
Yep, I can speak to today. We were on a charter boat. We actually went from the Rainy River, actually went up to the northwest angle today, and we drifted spinners, and we filled a cooler full of nice walleyes and saugers. We're throwing nice walleyes back at the end of the day. We then went out to the main basin looking for some big fish. Jerry got that 25. I think he might have missed one. We got a couple of eaters out there we threw back. Yesterday, I filmed a show with Greg Jones of Midwest Outdoors. We were pulling spinners in 20 to 22 feet of water in the Big Traverse Bay, on the south shore of Big Traverse Bay. We caught lots of nice eaters, some nice saugers, some jumbo perch. We got some jumbo perch today as well. Fishing's been really good. There's still a pot of big fish out there if you want to go big fish hunting. We're after eaters for the most part, and fishing's been excellent. Still pulling spinners, still pulling cranks. Water temperature's starting to drop a little bit. We can see from the new wave buoy page on Lake of the Woods Tourism's website that the water temps dropped down to about 65, shot up during the day to 67 when the sun was out, but they got as low as like 64 and a half. So water temperature's starting to drop. We expect in fact, there's some comments, there's some walleyes in the river now, we believe. There are a lot of birds in the river, probably going after some shiners that are just starting. Usually there's always a surprise run the first part of September. Well, the water temperatures dropping. We anticipate that's probably going to happen. Things are starting to transition. It was this morning, it was in the 50s up here.
I cannot believe we're talking about September and the Shiner run already.
Where did August go? Like, it's gone. It's
I'm not
over.
mad about it.
I kind of am.
I'm okay with it. And Joe, we're actually coming up. We're going to fish Lake of the Woods this weekend. We're going to film some Prairie Sportsman stuff up there as well, too. We got a really cool Prairie Sportsman episode coming next season from the Rainy River. Little hint, it's about sturgeon.
Couple sturgeon pieces from the Rainy River coming up this season.
That's right. And
we went by one of those buoys today that the DNR has out. I won't give any more away, but I think that's part of your show.
Yeah, well, that is going to be part of the show. There's some research on, because the sturgeon fishing on the Rainy River is absolutely bonkers. It's got to be maybe the best place in the world to catch lake sturgeon like that, with the amount of sturgeon that are up there and what's going on in the comeback story, the cleaning up the water, and the management that's being done. So we're gonna include all of that and what's being done currently to manage sturgeon on Lake of the Woods with the Minnesota DNR. We're gonna feature that in the story coming up. And I know Buffalo Bay. We never really talk about Buffalo Bay much, Joe. Lake of the Woods is so interesting when you talk about the United States and Ontario, but there's a little chunk of Manitoba over there too. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because Jay Siemens put out a video where they were jigging for walleyes or pulling. I think they were pulling spinners, and then they were sharpshooting walleyes, and they saw a sturgeon, and he essentially sharpshooted a sturgeon over there on the Manitoba part of Lake of the Woods,
yeah.
That just tells you just
on a drop shot.
On a drop shot. That just tells you how many sturgeon are just kind of out there roaming the basin as well as the Rainy River.
The DNR says that from Morrison, Ontario, down through the Northwest Angle, through Lake of the Woods into the Rainy River, there's about 100,000 sturgeon over 40 inches long.
That's wild.
That doesn't include the ones that are 39 and under. So there's a lot of sturgeon. Today, when we were drifting, the guide had a live scope down, and we could see our spinners and bottom bouncers behind the boat. And at one point in time, he goes, "Oh, there's about a big fish after. Oh my gosh, it's got to be a sturgeon." And then we could see the profile. There was a sturgeon chasing a spinner for a while. It was about a 48 incher.
Wow. That's so much fun. They're so cool. I love them. All right. Well, Will, first of all, thanks again for your service and for what you're doing there at the Pay It Forward. Thanks for being on the show. And Joe Henry, if people want to plan a trip or learn more about Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
You know what? You want to find out more about our Pay It Forward event? It's Pay It Forward, LOW for Lake of the Woods. PayItForwardLOW.org. If you want to find out more about Lake of the Woods tourism, and that's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Thanks for listening to the Fish Hunt Forever show. Download the Fish Hunt Forever podcast wherever you get podcasts or watch on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. If you like today's show, please give us a 5-star review. Find past shows, articles, news about regulations, and more at fishhuntforever.com.